You know, Alice David said something this morning that I really sparked to because it was my own experience, and that is that Walt was never interested in what he did yesterday. He was only interested in not only what he was doing, but what you were going to do next, because he was trying to stretch all of us.
Yeah.
And if you can keep stretching your people to say, that's a great attraction we did, but you know, now we've learned that, we've learned some new things out of that. What's the next one? How can we jump to another standard, another level? And I think right now in the theme park business, with other people being more aggressive about it, you have an even bigger challenge because there's other great stories out there that Disney isn't doing, and those are being done by a lot of ex-Imagineering, by the way. Almost every company has, we've trained so many people that are out and doing projects all over the world, and so that's a challenge continually. But if your people accept the fact that you expect them to grow, you expect them to go beyond where they were the last time, that's a wonderful way of living your life, you know? If somebody said, I always felt that what Walt said to us, that what we did yesterday was never going to be good enough again. We had to grow. We had to be better. We had to learn more. You know, things like I talk about John Henshaw. When John went to him about a couple of things. One was when they were working on Fantasia, John said he thought the male dancers were very feminine, and Walt said to him, "Do you know? How do you know that?" And John said, "Well, I really don't know. It's just my impression." And so Walt arranged for John to spend 2 weeks backstage with the Sol Uric Ballet Company. And John came back, he says, "Those are the greatest athletes I've ever been around." And they were such great, they were just very, really super specimens in what they did, and not effeminate at all. He had a whole different impression. And it was the same thing when Walt said, "I want you to design the Plaza Inn, the new Plaza Inn at Disneyland." And John said, "I have no idea about anything in the restaurant business." So Walt said, "Well, don't look at me, you find out." And so John took a course in restaurant management at UCLA. And he came back, and from then on, he was the expert because he could go into any kitchen and he knew exactly what should have been there. He knew what the chef should have been asking for, etc. And so it was a growth experience on a continual basis. And that continuing education is really, really important as part of what you do.
Yeah, and I think it's one of our challenges is one of the great things, one of the strengths of Imagineering is that Imagineers stay forever. They just don't leave because there's so much passion and they get better and better, and it's great to have deeply experienced people around. But you have to also, at the same time, find opportunities for the newer generation to get in there. So it's really coming in this balancing act and making sure you're setting up the right mentorships and getting people out there. Fortunately, we do have so much going on and so many different scales of projects that we're able to find these little opportunities to grow people through the system. But it's a kind of an interesting thing if you're in the middle of it all. If you're down in as a new Imagineer looking up, you say, well, you know, when am I going to be able to be a Joe Rohde or a Tom Fitzgerald or Kathy Mangum? And it's really figuring out, you know, how are we going to put someone's career through this? Because it is a studio. It's a very unique studio. It's not a place that people just come and leave. We have a culture. Actually, I think it's a better way to put it. It truly is a deep culture.
Well, speaking of cultures, you know, when you do work all over the world, you have to think about where the product is going to go. And even though it's all Disney product, there are levels of knowledge that different people have around the world. What are you doing? What kind of approach are you taking in Shanghai with the knowledge that people have?
Yeah, well, Shanghai is a very exciting project right now because it's our next Castle Park, and it's going to be extraordinary. Being led currently by Bob Weiss, who's a very experienced Imagineer creative executive, and Howard Brown is the project manager. They're a really wonderful team. But it is China. Now we have the advantage that we learned a lot from Hong Kong. We were at the park in Hong Kong, and we've been expanding that. And things like, in China, with the one-child law, it's actually what I call the inverted triangle, because there's one kid, a set of parents, aunts and uncles, and grandparents. So you've got more adults than kids in a Disney theme park. And you really have to change things, and we didn't think about that in the first round of visiting Hong Kong. So we had, and culturally, they're not, roller coasters and things are out in the open, more like a Six Flags park or things like this. They don't hide their show and coasters and things like we do. So Space Mountain was suffering because, you know, grandmas would get on this thing thinking it was a planetarium show and come out the other end a little disoriented, to say the least. And if you go around China, they have big video monitors that shows what's inside the attraction. We're not going to do that because we're immersing in the story, so we come up with other ways. And we allow, when we did Grizzly Gulch, which was an expansion for that park, Jill and sister and the team, we have show elements inside the mountain. It's a runaway train, kind of like Big Thunder. But there's bears, very much in a Mark Davis style, and that's really cute and fun. But a lot of the roller coaster weaves through the land, so that anybody going through there can go, oh, that's what that is. And there's a lot of opportunities too. We allow the guests to actually walk through the path of the train in this Frontierland kind of setting, which allows those who don't want to ride, mostly the grandparents, to watch because they can see it going through. So you get these different things. We're camping out at our tables, you know, in the dining rooms because again, the grandparents wouldn't want to go on all the attractions, but they'll sit there with the backpacks and things while the family goes out and comes back. That's not really great when you want to have more people come in and eat. And so now we're designing spaces, beautiful. The hub in Shanghai is going to be a beautiful park kind of setting that is very magical. There's lots of things that I can't talk about right now, but it's going to be amazing. But a lot of places that will be very nice to sort of sit and rest in. And we're thinking about the entire park that way. We're also doing what we did, I think, really well with the Alani project too. We've got a lot of new Imagineers over there that are Chinese. Because you know, our job is to teach them what Disney means, but we need them to really help us interpret those distinctly Chinese moments and where that balance is going to come through. So I mean, Olani was really funny because, you know, that one, Bob Iger said, you know, big H, small D there. We don't want to just put a Disney attraction on Hawaii. We want to tell the Hawaiian story, and Joe Rohde is absolutely phenomenal. And he, you know, brought in these Hawaiian advisors. But one of the more difficult meetings I had, and this is one of our jobs, is, you know, you can imagine when Disney names something, there's a big marketing group and Imagineers who come up with the names for all this stuff. And it's, you know, we think about everything because it's going to be marketed this way. But in Hawaii, you know, Joe was telling us, oh no, this is a sacred spot. You know, this is a whole thing. And what you do is you get a Hawaiian dreamer to dream the name. I was like, what? He said, yes, this man is going to go to sleep and he's going to wake up in the morning and he's going to tell us the name of our resort. So the first few names we couldn't pronounce, so, you know, he went to bed and woke up and I would take these up at the time of service were low, and I said, so, you know, here's the name, and they're like, we can't, that name, because I can't tell you what they were, but they didn't sound very nice. So in Hawaiian, they probably sounded fine, but to us, they conjured up other images. So we're going, okay, that's not going to work. And we I was like, well, what do we do? And, you know, go back to sleep, and when you can dream. So Aulani is actually done by this master who is he's a name dreamer, and that's how we have our name. But that's the kind of company which I loved. I didn't get a corporate attitude. What I got was, you know, a lot of puzzled looks at first and said, oh, no, we're in this. We're going to design this thing. That's the culture we're going to be telling stories to, and we have to respect that. And as long as we can keep, you know, having him go to bed and come up with a new name, it's fine by us. I think it was around 15 names we went through.
Names are amazing things too, as part of the whole development of something. I remember when Michael Eisner first came into the company in 1984, and we pulled out everything we were working on, showing Frank Wells, and the first thing he lit on to do was something that Tony Baxter had called Zippity Doodah Run. And it was just at that time Disney had just released Splash as a movie. And very quickly, that attraction became known as Splash Mountain for two reasons. One, he said, we're going to promote the movie and the theme park attraction at the same time. And two, we're going to continue the tradition that you've established for mountain names. And so you look at the names of most of our thrill attractions. It's got Space Mountain and Big Thunder Mountain and Railroad and Splash Mountain. And it's the Disney tradition. Yeah. And it helps right away to say something about what we're doing because people know.
Yeah, and I think you've made a very good point. How important how you talk about the product and how you refer to it. It's just, we don't make rides, we make attractions, and actually, when you think about what Imagineering designs, we don't think of it as designing places or attractions or shows. We think of it designing experiences. So we think about everything, the food and the bathrooms. Everything is thought about and designed every inch of those places. In fact, Animal Kingdom. Most people think that, we probably worked with the landscape there, and we flattened that place first, completely flat, and then built the hills where we wanted them, and put the trees where we wanted them, and everything. So it's really phenomenal. I mean, you saw a little clip there on the Leslie Iwerks thing of the Shanghai site, and I was telling Marty, this is, for me, in this role, this is my first, what you call greenfield of a full park. So this is, you level the ground, and you emerge, and last year when I went over there, we were just beginning to sort of clear the ground, and you do about a year of plumbing, basically. You have to get all the stuff underground before you can come up. And I stood where I remember that great photo of you in Florida where you're standing, and I did the same thing with Howard Brown and Bob Weiss and Tom Staggs. We stood where the captain's going to be, and I think I almost fainted because I thought, how are we going to do this? It's going to be, there's a lot to do. It's like, it was great when it was drawings and a model, but now we have to build it. It's very exciting though.
Yeah, you look around at that. I remember Paris, it was so cold the first time I saw that site, and it was just a beet field. And I said, oh my God, what are we doing here? Why can't I go into Paris where it's warm? But Bruce, I think you ought to get a salary increase, because I noticed in the video and this, you have the same shirt on.
I do. Continuity. I'm all about continuity.
You go to Tom Staggs and say, I got to get a second shirt.
Might have transparent, Marty, really.